One of the images that I want to present to you again, one that I presented last Sunday night, was the image of an old deacon, an elder statesman in the kingdom of God in my very first pastorate. It was the late 1970s. His name was John Sharp Henry. In that little country church in rural Mississippi, he had lived his life. He had been a faithful father and a faithful grandfather. He had stood before God on behalf of his family and stood before his family on behalf of God. And I found in scrunging through the notes that I had a statement made by him that I had written down and somehow had preserved. He said, "My grandfather was a man of strong faith." He was speaking of an earlier time. "My grandfather was a man of strong faith and had no problem sharing his faith with his grandchildren. Each year we all gathered in a sort of great family reunion at the outer of Grandpa's pond, and Grandpa always managed to gather the grandkids together and tell us Bible stories." And now, John was the elder statesman, the grandfather in the family. And John was old and John was dying. They would weep. He would weep for his children. He would weep for his grandchildren. He would weep for their future, a future that was still out there that he knew he would never live long enough to see. And in substance, his words to me were, "There's so much I would like to share with them about Christ, but they're too busy to listen." And oh, how he would pine away if only he had the opportunity to be with his grandchildren as his grandfather was when he was but a boy. And he mourned the fact that his grandchildren were simply too busy. His words, "They just won't listen. I just can't get their attention." Now, many years later, I hope that I'm a wiser pastor. I wish I would have said to John back then, "John, don't be discouraged. You're in good company." Jesus said a similar thing when he said, "I have yet many things to say unto you, but you cannot bear them now." What Jesus was saying is, if I could get your attention, if I could get you to the point where you would be ready to receive, to hear, to listen, oh, how I could speak to you of wondrous things that thou knowest not. That little phrase, "cannot bear them now," is actually pointing to a future time when they will be able to receive, through the ministry of the Spirit of God, what he would have shared with them at that point in time. They couldn't bear it. They were not yet ready. He looked to "cannot bear them now," a future time with hope and anticipation, a time when God would finally have their attention concerning the realities that he wanted to share with them. I wish I would have said, "Don't worry, John," but I say to those of you who are the Johns of this day, don't worry. Keep praying. Keep attempting to share. Keep trusting your children and your grandchildren and their future to Christ, for the time will come when God will get their attention, even when you can't.